what do we have here? We have 4 players from the Clippers.
Okay.
The first one is Bones Highland. He is a restricted free agent, 1 year and $4.2 million left on his deal. He's a restricted free agent this year, right?
After this year.
After this year.
So you'd have to give up something to get him.
Okay.
Or, again, you could give up a second-round pick and accept him into your biannual exception.
Right. Okay. We have Paul George, who has a player option at $50 million.
Yeah, it's 50-something.
Yeah, he will. I think he's going to opt out and sign a extension.
Well, there's a possibility of that.
Right.
Okay.
Mason Plumlee, who's a free agent, and then Brandon Boston, who is a free agent.
Yeah, Brandon Boston. He's going to be a restricted free agent. He's played 3 years there, but he's going to be like Gilbert Arenas exception like rules. So he's going to be a player that you can't. Because he's been there 3 years, they will have some sort of bird rights to him, and he will be some sort of restricted free agent going into the summer.
I see.
But we're also talking about a bit role player who may or may not make it in the NBA.
Yeah, so that would be. So we'll start at the bottom here. Brandon Boston would be a flyer.
Yeah, he's a flyer.
Brandon Boston is he's had some flashes in the NBA. You bring him in. He's the body type you're looking for. He's a good athlete.
Yeah.
If he's bad at basketball, it's a low risk move.
Yep.
But I like the upside.
No, totally. And I think when we look at a player like Brandon Boston, you look at him in the same light that you look at like a Kessler Edwards. Like he's young. He hasn't really got a shot. And the reason why he hasn't got a shot is because he plays on a very good team that's historically good with historically good forwards. And there's just not a lot of opening.
Yep.
But he's got a ton of bounce. He's young. He's athletic. He's somebody who has like a crazy like wingspan and everything else. So like he's a type of player, like the mold of players that the Kings have been lacking. Whether or not he's good enough or not, we don't know yet. He's 6'6" and 3/4, 6'5" and 3/4. So in shoes, he basically plays at 6'7" with a 6'11" wingspan.
Yeah.
And he's got like crazy bounce. Like
yeah.
he's a nice high flyer.
Yeah. So I love that idea as a flyer. 2 bench upgrades here with Bones Highland and Mason Plumlee. Maybe I'm just dramatically overrating Bones Highland. I think he's terrific. And if they're looking for if they wind up having to look for a Malik Monk upgrade, that might be the first place I look.
Yeah, I think that with Bones, you're gonna have you can call Jordy Fernandez and say, hey, like, what did you think of Bones while he was there? So you're gonna get an understanding of who he is as a person, his work ethic, all those things, how much he can improve and all that. But he was with them. He was with the Denver Nuggets before he came to the Kings.
Right.
Jordy was, and although he's not here in Sacramento anymore, that doesn't matter. Yeah, this is like a breaking case of emergency. If you were to lose Malik Monk, this is on a list of players that we would say, okay, who could possibly replace him? And no one is going to be a true replacement for Malik.
No doubt.
But Bones at least has like the outline of a player that's very intriguing.
Yeah.
He's got sort of the length and again, the athleticism that you would want. It's just whether or not he's good enough, whether he can actually fit into it. And a player that barely played this last year. He only played 37 games, 6.9 points per game for the Clippers. But he still averages 10 points a game for his career. So that shows you that he does have a scoring knack.
I think he would be a bucket in the Malik Monk role. Now, can he distribute like that? I don't know. I haven't seen enough of it. But I think if you gave him like, you are the sixth man, you are going to run the second unit. This is your job. You're going to play 28 minutes a night, 30 minutes a night, whatever it is. I think he could thrive in that role.
No, I think there's a good possibility that he could.
Yeah.
We just don't know because he hasn't, he has done it. He just hasn't done it for a long stretch.
Paul George, I think is, he would be a starter, but I don't know that you want to go max out a guy who's in his mid-30s.
Yeah. He's 33 and it's really tough. And there's really no way for the Kings to max out Paul George. Like we hear Paul George and the Kings. I don't know how you could get that deal done. You could trade for him with his one. He could opt in. You could trade for him. Then you could extend him after he opts in. But I would still look at that as like such a flyer. At 50 million, you're gutting half your team to go get him.
Yeah, I
So,
don't. I get the theory.
mhm.
I get it on paper. Paul George is very good. He'd be in a lesser role with the Kings on a night in night out basis. Like in theory, yes, but in practice, I don't see it. I don't.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then, the other player we have on that list is Mason Plumlee. Everyone knows
You're a
that.
big Mason Plumlee guy.
Well, I like what Mason Plumlee does as a player. So if you look
Yeah.
at him in Charlotte, 12.2 points, 9.7 rebounds, but 3.7 assists.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I like Mason Plumlee is because he played in Jay Triano's system in Charlotte,
Yeah.
and can step right in. And when Sabonis leaves the court, you have a player who can run some of the same stuff, that can make the passes,
Mm-hmm.
who is a tough guy, who doesn't mind mixing it up,
Mm-hmm.
who can rebound. But again, we're talking about a 34-year-old backup center. It would basically be like him or Alex Len. And Alex Len is a better rim protector than Mason Plumlee. And maybe I don't know if he's a better defender, though. I just think that, like, continuity wise, that's a player that would fit into your system. So
yeah, it'd be fine.
Yeah,
I'm not super moved, but it's not like a downgrade.
No, I think it's
on the
probably a
bench.
bench improvement.
Over Alex Len?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I would kind of look at it. Like,
It feels lateral to me.
okay, but here's how I look at Alex Len.
Sure.
Right? How many games this year did Mike Brown either go to JaVale McGee or go to Trey Lyles? I mean, Alex Len, what did he play? 45 games?
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. I haven't looked it up, but I'm going to guess that Alex Len played about that. I think Mason Plumlee would be in your rotation from day one and all season long. 48 games for Alex Len.
Yeah, 2.5 points, 2.7 boards, 1 assist.
Yeah, and I don't think that you're going to ever play those two next to each other unless you're playing just like a monstrous team.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think it's, I think it's a player that makes sense.
Okay. We'll do the Suns here before we hit our break. The Suns are interesting. I have no idea what their plan is this offseason. They don't have a lot of flexibility.
Zero.
And maybe you can take some advantage of that and say, like, hey, you need to change up your roster. Here's Chris Duarte. give this a shot. We have 3 players down here for the Suns. We have Royce ONeal, Bol, and Nasir Little.
Mm-hmm.
Royce ONeal was a player we talked about a lot for the Kings at the trade deadline. I think that's a nice bench upgrade for you. I don't think he'd start.
I mean, there's a possibility.
Start him at the 2 and bring Keon off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you're looking at. You're looking at like the more mature version of Keon Ellis, like the seasoned veteran version of.
Okay. He's a free agent, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think he might get more than the veteran minimum, but I don't think it's going to be a lot more. Like, there was a time where he made good money.
Yeah.
But I don't think that anyone is going out there. I mean, maybe you have to carve out an $8 million salary out of your mid-level exception.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that that's what you would do for Royce ONeal. I mean, we're talking about he'll be 31 next season. He's, again, strong, physical, doesn't mind mixing it up, average 5 rebounds, which is really nice, coming off the bench or starting. I mean, he's a good rebounding guard. He's just not, 2.4 assists per game for his career. He's not like an outstanding playmaker.
Yeah.
But he's a solid 38% shooter from 3 for his career.
Yeah. Good defender.
Yeah. This is a type of guy that the Kings, if they are going to just bolster the lineup, this is a type of guy who would fit in the top 8 or 9 of your rotation.
Immediately.
Yeah.
He would. I love the Royce ONeal idea, especially if you're getting him for a few $1 million.
Yeah.
That would be big time. Bol was my pick out of this as a flyer. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Bring in this 7'3" guy, shoot a little bit. I'm in.
Yeah, I totally get that too. He's fun, but I just don't know that he's ever going to be the stats he puts up and the player that he is are like, they don't really match, right? So I think that's always an issue. And then the guy I like out of here is kind of a quiet one. It's Nasir Little, and Nasir Little. Again, we're talking about a 6'6", 6'7" guy with shoes on. with a 7'1" plus wingspan.
Mm-hmm.
He was really, really highly regarded in Portland like 2 years ago, and like
I did
almost
not know
untouchable.
when you said I was shocked by that.
Yeah, no, Portland when they were doing their rebuild, it was Anthony Simons and Nasir Little that they were hoping to build around when they were going to start jettisoning pieces, like when they did the CJ McConnell deal. That's who they were looking to build around, and then Nasir Little got hurt. I think that there's a lot more to his game, and he specs out. We were talking about this earlier as the same exact player size, at maybe a little bit bigger than Moses Moody.
Yeah,
and so he's on a 3-year deal that pays him about $21 million bucks, and that's one of those deals where you could say, hey, we got a $6 million expiring contract. Would you trade it for Nasir Little? And maybe that would be a player that you could build around. Again, length, athleticism is what you're going for, and you hope that you strike gold in a player that was underutilized this last year.
That's the exact kind of move I would love to see the Kings make.
Okay.
Not that that's going to get them over the hump to where they need to go. But when you start talking about marginal moves, because we've talked about it ad nauseum, there needs to be some kind of bigger swing than a Nasir Little, Royce ONeal type of player.
Yes.
But when you talk about Nasir Little and you're talking about moving, what'd you say, Chris Duarte?
Yeah. So, and I could explain why that might work, but go ahead.
So if you're swapping out Chris Duarte, who you just kind of, okay, you know what that is with your team, and bringing in Nasir Little, where maybe he's the 12th guy on your bench, or maybe he develops nicely and he's your 8th or 9th guy.
Yeah.
And you can spot start him if you need to, and maybe he develops with your team. Like that's whether it's him or a player like that. I think any player they can target like that they can get on the relative cheap, I'm all for it.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who just turned 24, who has plenty of NBA experience. He's basically the same age as Keegan Murray.
Like 237 games.
So he's got plenty of experience, and he fits the player mold that you need. So maybe he does develop into a long-term starter at the small forward spot.
Sure.
Maybe he doesn't, but you have 3 years to look at him. And the reason why a team like Phoenix might trade a guy like this is because if they took in Chris Duarte, they could do something called stretch provision Chris Duarte. They could waive Chris Duarte, pay his salary over, it's twice as many years as a salary plus an extra season. It's twice as many years of his contract plus an extra season. So just think of it this way. He makes $6 million. You could you could waive him and stretch his salary over 3 years, and then save basically $3 million. Well, no, you would save more than that off the Nasir Little contract, which is about $7 million. Chris Duarte would only cost $2 million in this season, and so they would save $5 million in luxury tax and cap space, which is going to be a problem for them because they're way over the second apron of the luxury tax, way over. So that $5 million savings right there could end up saving them $25 million or $20 million.
And that's going to be an important thing too. We'll talk about the Lakers and Warriors after the break, but that's going to be an important thing to keep in mind while we talk about this, because there's going to be teams that maybe used to be taxpayers that under the new rules, and if you're Golden State or Phoenix, you're looking at your team going like, hey, is this a title team? Is this a team we want to hang out in the second apron for? Anything they can do to save a couple $1 million is going to matter. So as we go through this, just really try and keep that in mind. And that's something I have to do as well, because you go, why would they ever do that? But it's like, dude, shaving $5 million off of their payroll could save them tens of millions.
And it's $5 million a year off their payroll. Because again, Duarte would be stretched over 3 years. And Nasir Little has a 3-year contract. So it'd be $5 million a year that they would be saving.
Yeah.
And maybe Nasir Little doesn't work out. Maybe he does. Maybe maybe he's part of another trade down the road. But he's young. He's got experience. He might be better than the options that you have.
Yeah.
And he might develop into something that's better. So,
yeah. And that's, again, this is not to say that Nasir Little is going to get the Kings to a championship, but there's two types of move the Kings need to be making. It's that one, and then the bigger ones. And there will be bigger names, the Paul George type of names, the Brandon Ingram type of names. We'll hit all those as well. Okay. But that's not going to be the only thing Sacramento's looking to do this offseason. At least it better not be. They're going to be in a tough spot.